Howdy, folks. Craig Hlavaty here at the Houston Museum of Natural Science. This is another edition of the Beyond Bones podcast. I am joined by, as always, Kat Havens. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you doing, Craig?
I am great. I have laser lights on me. I have all kinds of crazy stuff going on here. It's my new house. I am enjoying it. How are you doing?
I love it. I'm doing great. I am in my classroom, which is one of my favorite places to be. And we've got Dave Temple below us.
Yes, we do. Turn your phone off.
David
Temple, how you doing?
Howdy. I'm doing as good as well, managing to stay healthy, and I'm over here in the state of Alabama.
Alabama, what you doing in Alabama?
Well, it's the place where I was raised, so I'm over here working on a house.
Cool. Okay. Are you leaving us? No.
No,
God,
not at all.
Okay.
Like the Mark Twain things, the rumors of my death have been exaggerated. But,
awesome. So if you don't know who David Temple is, folks, he's the associate curator of the paleontology lab, the Paleontology Hall, Morian Hall of Paleontology at the museum. We love David. David is sort of like a long lost cast member from Kids in the Hall.
Oh, man,
that's what David reminds me of.
I've never seen that, but I suspect that might be some kind of burn.
It's good.
It's good. You should watch.
I'll look it up on YouTube.
They're all on YouTube. It's a Canadian. It was basically the Canadian Saturday Night Live.
Oh, okay, yeah. Good. Well, I can live with that. That sounds good.
So today we have you on the podcast. We have you dialed in from your iPhone out in Alabama. We're talking about the Green River collection coming to the Paleontology Hall in Houston. What is this collection? What is this? What is the Green River? It's not the Creedence Clearwater song.
No, and it's not the serial killer either.
And that's a big question there, Craig.
What is the Green River Formation, and why do we have all these amazing fossils coming to the museum?
Well, let's start out with what it is. Green River Formation, it's a record of part of geologic time that's right after the Cretaceous. So the dates on it roughly run from what we'll be displaying from about 53.8 to about 48 million years. So it's a time right after the upheavals from the Cretaceous. And people tend to think Rocky Mountains, if you've ever seen them, they seem like they're hugely ancient. They're not. Those, at this point, they were one of the main forming factors that created the environment that preserved these fossils. So the Rocky Mountains were formed after the Cretaceous, and the sediments that came off the Rocky Mountains ultimately were the ones that buried the animals that you'll be looking at the museum.
Okay.
Ancient being a relative term, correct, Dave? 48 million is pretty ancient.
Yeah. People think of the dinosaurs as being very, very old. Of course, there's things that are much older, and this is afterwards. What's interesting about this is one of the first documented they call them logger stones. So it's a fossil treasure trove. And this is one of the first ones after the Cretaceous. So it's complete enough that you get a real opportunity to construct the entire ecosystem from everything from mammals to reptiles to amphibians to insects, even bacteria. Are all preserved here, and it tracks for several million years, so you can actually see how ecosystems have changed over time. And so there's many things here that's very important in the evolutionary history of these animals, and this is the best place to see them because the conditions were so perfect that many of the things are preserved whole.
Where's this formation at on a map?
It's pretty big. The lake system was huge. It covered parts of Wyoming, Utah, and Colorado. Okay. Now, not the entire states, but it's just sort of there on the intersection.
The Four Corners?
Yeah, in that area. And it's very expansive. And everything that we have in our collection that we'll be displaying in this new exhibit was recovered from the area that's known as Fossil Lake.
Is that the company or the people that we have dealt with, you and me, or is it a different group of people?
Sort of. They actually have a quarry there. Many of the commercial guys do have quarries there. But
does it look like this there?
It does look like that right there. And so it's just these flat, sort of limey mudstones. Actually, it's oil shale. It's the largest oil shale deposit. So Kat, do this. Can you scratch? Do you have a slab there?
I do.
You do. So there you go. So scratch that and sniff it and see if you smell anything.
I know what it smells like.
I always tell people this. Hey, do you want to smell really horrible? And most people always say no. But
I think it smells good. It smells like petroleum, David. Tell us why.
There you go. That's the largest deposit of oil shale in the world. And, it's got other things in it too, like these really cool fossils.
I like the fossil turds the best. Is that make me gross?
I don't think that's a scientific term.
It is a term. It is too. There's one right here.
And when you think about it, and if you put a oblique light on that, any little oblong bump is a coprolite.
Yeah.
So,
that's the term.
Yeah, copper. So if you think about it, this is the bottom of this huge lake, and everything up top, whether it's a dead animal or of course, as you know from that children's classic book, everything poops or everyone poops. It all it drifts down and ends up on the lake bed. And the cool thing about it is the processes there were very still, and so you would have this sort of carbonate rain that would come down and very gently bury everything. And that's what it takes. So if you want to leave a beautiful corpse, you have to be very quickly and buried pretty gently, and then you will leave a beautiful fossil corpse. And that is the perfect condition that we see here.
It is the coolest. We have plants, we have fish mostly, right?
Yes, we do.
Reptiles,
we do have some reptiles. We have birds. The birds are the coolest part because of the nature of the Lagerstätten here, it does preserve soft tissue. And the soft tissue that mainly gets preserved is in the form of feathers. So we did the new thing this time, as far as sort of how the museum does builds the collections and does the science, and that we acquired the fossils directly from the quarry raw, unprepped. So then we have a preparator that works with us, Mike Eklund. And of course, we have our prep lab, our fossil prep lab, but he works with us and has given us a lot of training. And he prepared this wonderful frigate bird. So the frigate birds are real important to this story. And it's the bird so nice, we did it twice. So we actually have 2 frigate birds in the exhibit, one of which is on loan, one of which the museum owns, and both are covered with feathers.
And Mike was at the museum earlier this year before COVID.
Yes.
Obviously. He was working on some fossils as well in this little side room over there. What was he working on at that point?
And those were the ones. He was working on the bird, and you came down and saw him working on the bird. And he was also working on a gar. We have a Malleosteus, which is a species of gar, which is one of the rarest fish, rarest fish in the Green River Formation. It's not the rarest, but it's in the top 2 or top 3. And it's spectacular. So he prepared the gar, he was working on the bird, and that's being finished right now, even as we speak, out in Wyoming. So he did most of the prep in-house at the Houston Museum of Natural Science. And then, of course, these slabs, as you know, they're kind of fragmentary. And so everything has to be put back together and just so, and that's what's happening right now. So the final assembly of the bird fossil is happening even as we speak. They're working on it right
now. And so,
go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Craig. You first.
You sounded like you had something amazing to say, so you go.
I just want to know what a frigate bird is.
Yeah.
I thought a frigate was a ship.
So the fossil name is Limnofrigata. And a frigate bird is, and believe it or not, this is one of the cool Houston connections, that these things come by the Houston shoreline occasionally. And the ones from the Green River, that's the stem. That's where it all started. There's 5 species of frigate birds today, but the oldest ones known start in the Green River. And there's one that's not from Fossil Lake, that's just a little bit deeper in another section. But again, it's still Green River. It's from the Eocene. That might be slightly older than the ones that we have, but ours are spectacular. And again,
does it look like a pelican or a seagull or?
It's sort of related to an albatross. They have a hooked beak, and
okay.
Crazy. They're the ones that have the big red thing that comes out. Like I always thought,
like a lizard.
Called mine a double chin, but they have a modified. I think it's called a guttural pouch that they, as part of courtship, they can inflate it. And it's
yeah, see, that's what I have right now. See,
look, it's a guttural pouch.
Yeah, it's my courtship.
What do you keep in there, Craig?
Usually candy, mints, obviously,
Oats.
oats, depending on
You-
the type of day.
If you wanted to go full frigate in a courtship scenario, what you would have to do is you'd have to put it on there. You have to have some sort of a plastic sack that would inflate, so you could make it go woo, woo,
So it's
woo.
like the lizards, the anoles.
In a sense, yeah, it's a display thing that they use. And the frigate birds are really fun. They have some great, and we don't know if the Green River birds did the same thing, but modern frigate birds, if you want to use that as an analogy, they do practice something that's called kleptoparasitism, which is, to me, it's very, very fascinating. So they have the largest wingspan to weight ratio of any bird. So they're not really power flappers, but they're gliders, but they are masters of the air. And the way they get their food with this kleptoparasitism, it's almost like a fighter plane duel, is they attack other birds. And
That's awesome.
By harrying the other bird, if the bird wants to escape, what do? Well, you dump your fuel or your food. And so the birds will throw up what they've eaten, and then the frigate bird sweeps down and grabs it out of the air and eats that.
That sounds normal.
They derive a significant portion of their nutrition from this kleptoparasitism. And they also will fly down and scoop things off the surface of the ocean. And they can fly for months. And they even they sleep when they fly. They're not the world record holder as far as distance and things like that, but they are, it's pretty impressive. They'll, over a course of a single day, if they're in a land area, they can range as much as over 300 miles to, and hunt for food. So it's kind of like they fly up to Dallas to catch some fish and then come back. And they're not good at swimming, so they don't like to swim. Their feathers aren't waterproof, and they're not real good on land. So, they occasionally will perch to mate and build their nests and things like that. But
did you say they can sleep while they fly?
Sleep when they fly. What they do is they will turn off one half their brain, and one half stays awake. The other half, rests, and then they switch. And so
I do that all the time.
Yeah, I do. Usually it's so they say, "Are you awake?" And you go, "Yeah."
I wish I could do that while I was driving. That'd be fun.
Yeah,
me too.
I've been told a lot of drivers try to do that, particularly in Houston. But yeah. But anyway,
so where? Go ahead. Sorry.
Frigate birds.
Okay. Huh.
And
now, where is this collection going to be at in the museum?
We'd had a little room, and it's funny because now it's been dismantled, and as far as the history of the hall goes, it's not as important, but it was important. I always referred to it as Joel's Pleasure Palace. Remember that? You remember it because it had many, many exquisite things, some of the nicest things, and it had a very different look to all the rest of the hall. And the look was, it was very dark. The cases actually had 360 degrees or minimally 270 degrees view. And there was red carpet on the floor. You've been in there, I'm sure. The red
Amber, where Amber was?
No, that's the wedge room. That's where Mike Eklund did the prep on the thing. But the red carpeted room that's right next to the petrified wood room, the entire paleo hall was going to look like that. So that was sort of a test maquette for the entire thing. So imagine the paleo hall, instead of having the polished concrete and the white bases, imagine that it's dark. The thing is completely covered in red carpet.
No, thank you.
Looks more like the Kremlin.
Yeah, actually, it would have a lot more like Kremlin or Kremlin Gold, some of those other kinds of fine art shows that we've done. It would look a lot like that, and the fossils would be in all of these sort of pylon cases, and not so many wall cases as we have now.
Well, I like what we have now, because now it looks like I always tell people that our paleo hall looks like an art installation. Like it doesn't. It seems otherworld. It's different. Yeah.
It's not static.
You're spot on. So the idea was to put fossils in a fine art installation.
Got it.
To treat the objects, treat the fossils as fine art, and these Green River slabs and this new exhibit that we're opening, for collectors and people, this is considered sort of the quintessential fine art fossil. So these slabs are. So the pieces in the show are absolutely stunning, and they're very
the preparator work, the work that Mike's been doing. I mean, I've seen a lot of Mike's work. I've interviewed him before for YouTube, and he just does amazing work. So it's the attention to detail is definitely, it's off the charts.
Yes, and he's worked with our guys in our lab a lot, and I've learned an awful lot from him, and our people have too. And one of the things that he sort of hits home, and many fossil preparators don't do this, is that everything is done under a microscope. So if you're doing it under a microscope, you know, magnification, we used to say magnification, but even that's not good enough. The microscope is what's good enough. And it doesn't matter if it's something big like a dinosaur, or if it's something, you know, more intricate, more detailed fish. And
Dave, you turned me on to this many years ago when you brought home that kit in a box, and I took it from you, and I stayed up all night long, like for like 8 hours with a sharp stick and a magnifying thing, and I came to work, hands were like this. I couldn't move for like, but this is more refined than what I did, right?
Yeah, no, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. You can make it by using high power magnification. Of course, you can make it much more refined. What impressed me about it is you and I think we were the first ones that introduced it to education for kids to do.
Yep.
And I would go in there and consult, and they would just be, you know, going at it in a very haphazard manner. And at first, I just thought it was because they were bored, but they really weren't bored. They were actually really into it. They wanted to take them home at night and work on them there. And so it's been a very popular thing. And that's why we train our fossil preparators. That's their first task, is they do a Green River fish, one of the little Nidia, which incidentally, that's the single most common vertebrate skeleton in the world.
That's the Nidia, right?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. And so that's the single most common vertebrate fossil skeleton that exists in the world. And I think it's the state fossil of Wyoming for that reason.
You know, 2 years ago, when I was still at the Chronicle, and I went and did a story inside the Paleo Lab about you, David, you gave me one of those fish, and I worked on one of those fish for about 3 or 4 hours on a Saturday afternoon. When I was done, I could barely see straight, and my fingers were vibrating from using the little air scribe thing.
Vibrate with excitement.
Yeah, I was like,
he had an air scribe. I was like back in the Stone Age with like a metal needle.
Actually, there's no school like old school. You should use a tungsten carbide needle, and you should be very skilled with that before you consider using any kind of air tool. But I think I wanted to give Craig the full experience. And there's nothing more exciting than firing up one of those air scribes. And
Craig always gets to do the best stuff.
It was a lot of fun. And with just a few months later, I got on the team. So, I mean, definitely it was almost like that was like the interview before the interview.
Yeah, I like that. I remember that well. That was a lot of fun because that was right at the time we opened.
Yeah. So Green River, it's going to be opened up. It's this little separate side room next to the Paleo Hall. That's where you're going to be able to find all these amazing fossils. How many fossils do we have coming in all?
Well, it doesn't, I almost hate to say it because it doesn't sound like very many. It's 17 slabs.
But they're big.
But some of them are very large. Some of them are 12, 14 feet across. And the quality is unbelievable. So there's things in there, for instance, the finest example of any Green River snake, the #1 example in the world. And those are very, very rare, will be there. A killer bat. If you're interested in micro bats, if you're interested in bat, the bats are for Green River, they're great. So there's now at least 2 species, and there may be more. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they think they finally found enough bats that they think there could be 3 or more species. But the key thing to remember is bats are incredibly rare, and there's only 2 places where you can really find them where they're complete. One is Messel, which is sort of which is another Eocene site that's in Germany, and then Green River. Those are the really only 2 places you find the complete bats. And what's fun about that is that the bat that we have, the species that we have, can echolocate, but the other bat that's found alongside that bat can't echolocate. So this outcrop is right about the time where that adaptation happens, where bats are forced to hunt at night. So cool. Yeah.
So it's almost like the Green River fossils we're getting. It's sort of like I guess the fossils we're getting, it's like a cool little deleted scenes from evolution that we're getting to see up close.
Yeah. And there's many things like I become obsessed with fish and fishing. I was in my youth, but once I got to be old, I kind of, stopped. But one of the things that's this exhibit has rekindled that, because a lot of the fish that are in our exhibit, they are considered living fossils. In fact, one of them is the oldest living species in North America. So the paddlefish, we will have a fossil paddlefish, and that is the oldest species that we have. And it is a Texas native, but it went extinct here. But Texas Parks and Wildlife has reintroduced it in Caddo Lake, and it seems to be doing well. And they're just crazy, weird, primitive fish. And we have a fossil one in the exhibit. And of course, if you go to Caddo Lake in Texas, there's a chance you can see a living one. The living ones, actually, where I am in Alabama, they're not common, but they're here. And so we have a fossil one of those. We also have a fossil bowfin, which I've got a picture of the guy that caught one of those in the bayou inside the Houston city limits.
That's crazy.
If you've ever seen a bowfin, the first time I caught one as a kid, I pulled it up on the bank, and I just remember looking at it going, that ain't right. I don't know what but it ain't right.
Kind of like Dave.
Yeah, that just ain't right. That dog ain't hunting. But there's an article that was written over here the sort of a fish article, and I thought it was very, very funny. They called it Trash Fish Tuesday, and they featured the bowfin, and they said that if your child was as ugly as a bowfin, you would feed it with a slingshot. And these things, they get no respect. Over here in Alabama, they call them grinnels, but they're also known as grindles. They're also known as cottonfish, because when you eat one, they have that curious quality. And I know exactly what they're talking about from a restaurant in Houston. When you chew it, it just swells up in your mouth. And it doesn't, the fibers don't break down. The more you chew it, the bigger it gets in your mouth.
Wow.
I don't like that.
Well, the trick is you have to know when to cook it, and you have to cook it right there, almost like on the bank when you caught it. If you let it sit for a while and you don't keep it alive, and then you let it sit for hours before you clean them and eat them, it gets like that. It swells up in your mouth. And I've only had one experience with that. And I don't even know if they're still open. Is Sammy's Wild Grill still open?
No, they were on Washington Avenue. They closed. No,
yeah. Well, they used to serve boa constrictor chili.
Yep.
And the only thing I can relate to this experience is I got the boa constrictor chili. And when you eat boa constrictor, the more you chew it, the bigger it gets in your mouth. So it's really hard to swallow.
Come on. What that where Sammy's Wild Game is now is actually a voodoo donut.
Yum.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
That's correct. And then of course the last major fish that we have that's terrifying and it's prehistoric and a living fossil is the gar. We have two gar.
I love gars. They're snuggly.
Yeah.
We do have a big one that's very much the biggest species that's there, and it's very similar to the alligator gar, which Texas is known for its alligator gar. And we should put up a picture of one. It's possible to catch a 9-footer in the bayou inside of
my brothers used to do that.
Yeah, those things, people do eat them. Yesterday, a guy told me, was online talking about some gar, and they told me there are no less than 8 restaurants in Houston that will serve gar. I only know, but so maybe we should all get together and go eat some gar.
Yeah, they're not pretty. They're not pretty,
no.
But I mean,
I love them. I love them like bats. They are snuggly and cute.
They look horrific, and shows like River Monsters love them, but there's no documented attacks of people. The only thing I ever found, allegedly a case in Louisiana in the early 1900s, a woman got her toes bitten off. She was dangling her toes in the water or whatever, and an alligator supposedly took off a couple toes. But that was newspaper sensationalism, and they said that no one was ever able actually to find where the lady had gone to the doctor, the whole thing, to corroborate the story. But that's in the lore that they will attack you. But when you watch the people fishing for it, they're not aggressive. And I would love, as part of this exhibit, to do kind of a live thing like we're doing here, but we do it from the bank of the bayou, and we go catch one of those giant gar.
I want to, you do it with the rope, and they shred the rope. It's no hook or anything. You just do that, and then you throw it in, and they get their teeth caught in it. and it's the weirdest thing, and I've seen it work, and I've seen them on the trot line too.
Yeah, you have to noose them. Texas is famous for alligator gar fishing. There's people that come from all around the world to go to Texas and catch a big alligator gar. And they've got is an industry now that's sort of where they do the catch and release, and they're trying to conserve the gar population. But there's a great YouTube video on there it's a Texas guy. And normally, if you do it, you have to hire a professional gar guide, and that can be quite expensive. But this guy is a gar guide, and he just lays it out. He tells you everything you need to know to go and catch a world record gar.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we'll hopefully maybe we'll get to do that. Go out and go fishing.
Can it cool down a little bit first, David? It's I don't know how hot it is in Alabama, but it's not nice here.
It's 95 degrees here and probably about the same amount percentage humidity. So Houston and Alabama are very similar in their climates. And
let's wait until we get a cold front, and then I will go gar fishing with you all weekend long, and we'll have gar steak.
Okay, I don't know about eating anything out of the bayou, but
no.
I don't want bayou fish or cottonmouth fish or any of those fish.
Yeah, but I've got it in a presentation I'm working up. A guy that's just right outside of Houston, somewhere on the bayou. I think it's over towards. To me, it looks like it's over towards Bayou Bend, sort of north, right behind River Oaks. And he's got cute little bowfin there, and he's holding them up, and he's about probably 12 inches long or so. But they're in the bayou. These things were ancient fish. They're fossils, and they're around us in Houston, Texas.
That is super cool.
Now, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Craig. Go ahead. Let me ask a question real quick. Hang on. One more question, Craig, please. These are what kind of fossilization process is this? It's different, right? It's a smushy carbonization, maybe? Is that right?
No, it's the same kind of process, but so the mineralization of the bones is different. I'm not exactly what the composition of, but what happens is this is really, really soft mud, and so as it keeps raining down and more pressure gets on it, the things that get buried under it get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and they get compacted. And as the pressure of the sediments pushes down, it squeezes out all the water. And so then like this limey, soft, squishy mud that would, if you're on the bank or walking around, it would come up between your toes. It dewaters and slowly over time turns into solid rock. And of course, the only thing that happens to things that get preserved like this is they do get some compression. So like on our Malleosteus, that particular gar, the preservation's outstanding, but what you do see is, they're kind of thick-bodied fish. They're kind of round across the midsection, and you can kind of see as it was compressed, you sort of rolled. It sort of distorted a little bit. But I think that's cool because that sort of shows you the taphonomy of, how all that happened, how the fossil. But it's going to be a beautiful show. It's well worth it. It's free with museum admission, and it'll be open, of course, all the hours that the museum is open. There's a few pieces that are on loan, and then there's many of the pieces are new museum acquisitions. So Green River is very iconic, and so it's something the museum is really trying to build a great collection of. And man, were it not for this COVID thing, we're going great guns. But we've got a very, very respectful show at this point.
No, we have a lot of great stuff. If you guys are, we have a lot of all of our safety protocols are in place at the museum. Obviously, you must wear a mask unless you're 10 and under. We're cleaning everything constantly. We're trying to, create a really nice, safe space for families to go and visit. It's clean. We're still open. You can still support us by going to the website.
Easy social distance here. There's plenty of room to spread out. Got my sign.
Yeah. And we're still at 25% occupancy as well. So you have plenty of room. I think I was talking to Nicole Temple earlier this week, and she said it's almost like having the museum to yourself.
It is.
We're still giving you guys an option to come and visit, to get out of the house, to social distance, wear a mask, and learning hasn't stopped at the museum. If you can't come to the museum, you can always support us. Go online to hmns.org, and you can buy a membership for when everything does go back to normal. If it'll go back to normal. Let's just fingers crossed. And yeah, come see Green River.
We
Kat,
have virtual stuff too available.
yes.
Craig.
Do you have talk about that a
Virtual
little bit while we
camp,
have
virtual classes, virtual movie watching, all kinds of stuff to check out.
David, do you have anything else while you're in Alabama? Bamba.
No, just that I'm actually pretty excited about getting back and want to see the exhibit. They send me daily updates. They're installing the slabs now, and you know, they have big crews. So some of these things are quite monumental. They'll weigh thousands and thousands of pounds. So they have the lifts and all the guys, and it's always very exciting to watch that happen. It is sort of rewarding. It's one of the things of the job, but I'm always supposed to be there, but generally I'm supposed to stay out of the way. I'm only there in case something goes horribly wrong. Then they go.
So they can blame it on you?
Yeah, exactly. But I know enough to stay away from the guys, and they know what they're doing. And but that's a fun thing to see some of these giant monumental pieces, you know, go up on the wall. Then you see the lights tweaked, and then like, wow, it's pretty amazing.
Well, I'm excited to see it. When, I guess next week. I guess what's the date for this one to open up?
I think there's a construction detail they can't take care of until August 3rd. So
Okay.
One of the things that's kind of funny is that, you know, with all the COVID and everybody putting shields over everything, plexi works to fly. And so all of these pieces will have plexi standoffs on them. So, you know, so they can't be touched, because it is very much like fine art.
Yeah.
And so we don't want anybody touching it. And so they'll just have some pegs and some plexi standoff, but they can't get the plexi until August 3rd. So I anticipate we might be open. I don't know when the first weekend is around August 3rd, but we'll be open around then.
Cool. I can't wait. I might go peek. Am I allowed to peek?
I don't know. Sometimes they let people in there, sometimes not. But you know what? When I get back, we'll go walk around and we'll strategize.
Yay.
And, cool. All
right. I got invited first, Craig.
There you go. I'm sure we'll do a video or two in there, hopefully.
Yeah.
Everybody gets in there. Nice socially distanced video to where you're 6 feet there, over there. So
I've told you some of the cool stuff that's in there, but there's things I've left out, and there'll be amazing things in there. So I'll be looking forward to sharing that with you guys, and also with Houston at large. There's some other spectacular things in there.
Very cool. All right, folks, that has been another edition of the Beyond Bones podcast. David, thank you for calling in all the way from Alabama.
Thanks, Dave.
Kat, thank you again for going on this journey with us.
Absolutely. I always love being on a journey with you.
Very cool. All right. Well, let me go take the dog out. He's looking at me.
Probably needs a walk, and that dog's real cute, so you better tend to him.
It's funny the way you've got your sign right behind you on the wall with the social distancing. It's like you have two little Jiminy Crickets standing on your shoulder.
Yes.
I have two better angels.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't have one on each shoulder.
No, it's on your right shoulder, so I don't know what that means, but anyway.
I think that's the good side. Left is sinister.
That's correct.
And I just have my microwave. So
I like your new kitchen.
So is this a new house, Craig?
I say house, but it's an apartment. So it's a nice new apartment, and
it's super cute.
I'm getting used to having things like a dishwasher, a fridge that has an ice machine. So I'm
gosh.
See you and I are in my apartment. I sleep in the bathtub because of the gunfire. But
I have just 59 right in front of me, so I get to hear all the night racing over the weekends. So I can go, oh, cool, that's a Nissan, that's a Honda, that's a this, that's a that. So that it's like I live next to the Daytona 500.
Good. Look forward to seeing you guys.
You can't do without it.
Very cool. All right, guys.
All right.
Out. Thank you.
Later. Bye, guys. Be safe, Dave.
Okay. Bye-bye.